Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kristina Duchak, and on behalf of Links to Market, I welcome everybody to PharmaSynergy. PharmaSynergy-Virtual is the first virtual edition of our live event. With many of you, we have met back in London in February. Many of you have joined us here today for the first time. We warmly welcome you all. And I'd like to say a big thank you on behalf of our team for your trust, for joining us at this time of change. I have to say it was not an easy or light decision for us to take this event to digital format. We prefer live editions with the buzz, the interactivity, the live is always better. But we have to adapt to what we have at the moment and make the best of it. It's what humanity does best. And our team is very hopeful that we will be able to welcome you all in person to our PharmaSynergy on February 23rd, 24th, 2021, that will take place in Barcelona. Since the lockdown, all of you went through the journeys of Zooms, Skypes and Teams, and we knew that it's simply not enough to have the multifaceted experience that live PharmaSynergy offers. So we spent weeks fine-tuning the platform, and there are still many things which we would like to improve further. And I'm very grateful for your feedback. Thank you. I'm also very grateful to our team who has done amazing, who has made an amazing effort into making this event happening today. I have to say we had lots of conversations before we put together the program of today's event. And while what we noticed is that while pandemics was moving from one continent to another, we discovered our clients were at different stages of dealing with it. And the content-driven program was created with an objective of showcasing the best practices and approaches that companies from across the globe, companies of different scale, have implemented during the lockdown. But what I think is more important to illustrate the outlook for future. We would like to thank all of our speakers who are joining us today and tomorrow. We are honored that such amazing experts share their experience and their vision. The program is focused around three core sessions: strategy, business development, that are taking place today, and a biosimilar session that is taking place tomorrow. You can join any of the mentioned sessions by clicking join session, and you can submit your questions to the speakers using Q&A button. I also would like to invite everybody to join quickfire session where companies can present their products and capabilities. And with that, I would like to round up my welcoming speech and to pass the word to the moderator of the strategy session, Mr. Josh Schaefer, Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer at Mallinckrodt Pharmaceuticals.
The topic today is really around strategy and strategy in light of COVID. And what are some of the major shifts that companies are experiencing and the way that companies are rethinking their strategy across the industry. And contrary to what we've seen in many other industries, while COVID has slowed down airlines, the entertainment, travel industry, etc., what we've seen in the biotech and pharmaceutical industry is that we've actually seen a real uptick in business development deals, in deal making, and how companies are rethinking their strategy in light of COVID. And there's been absolutely no slowdown, certainly from my perspective, and I think the speakers will agree, that there's been no slowdown in strategy and deal making in light of COVID. So today's conversation is really going to be around how companies are thinking about the challenges that they're facing in light of COVID, how they're adjusting their strategy, and in particularly focusing on M&A activities. So some of the questions that our speakers are going to address are how we're now thinking about shifts within our product portfolio, how we're thinking about prioritization of development opportunities and commercial opportunities, and the impact that COVID-19 is having on some of those decisions. We're going to talk about the specific drug programs and initiatives that we're currently taking within the industry in light of some of these challenges, things like clinical trials being slowed or in some cases shut down, how we expect to reinitiate those clinical trials in light of COVID. Excuse me. And then also how we are embracing things like digital innovation to overcome some of these challenges and think about some of the disruptions that we're finding across the entire supply chain, whether that's API manufacturing, distribution, clinical trials, all of those things. And again, the spotlight is really going to be on the execution of the strategy, and particularly as it pertains to business development and M&A activities across our industry. So delighted to have three really esteemed speakers today. The first is Alejandro Delgado Alonso, who is the Vice President of Business Development and Exports at Italfarmaco. And he has been working in the industry for nearly 20 years. And his professional experiences range from small biotech startups, where he was the CEO of Life Pharma, which is now part of Italfarmaco, to Deputy General Manager and now Vice President of Business Development and Exports. He holds a PhD in organic chemistry and an MBA. And when he's not spending time doing presentations like this, he likes to read books about astrophysics. Our next speaker is Daniel West, who's the Vice President of Business Development and Licensing at ADVANZ PHARMA. And he also has been working in the industry for more than 20 years and was formerly with Covidien Healthcare, which is now part of ADVANZ PHARMA. He was a managing director at Dexcel Pharma and worked in a number of British pharmaceutical companies prior to joining Concordia, now ADVANZ. He enjoys traveling, mountain biking, and spending time with his family when he also is not working and giving presentations like this. And then our last speaker is Stefani Savareo, who is the Head of Innovation and Business Development at Ake Laboratories, which is a Brazilian pharmaceutical company. And he also has more than 20 years of experience leading businesses and technical areas in pharmaceutical companies, large pharmaceutical companies, including Bristol Myers Squibb and Merck, and holds a pharmacy degree as well as an MBA. In his role as Head of Innovation and Business Development, he's responsible for driving the Innovation Center, which integrates all areas related to research and development, technical, clinical, and business development. And in his career, he's led more than $400 million worth of M&A and business development deals. So I'm going to pass it over to our speakers. But before I do, I'd just like to reiterate that we want this to be an interactive session. The speakers will take about 15 or 20 minutes to give their presentations. As Christina mentioned, there is a Q&A function on the bottom of your screen. If you have a specific question, please type it there. And we will make sure that we address those questions during the Q&A session. We're going to run the three presentations continuously, and then we will take the Q&A sessions after the formal remarks. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our first speaker.
Thank you, Jos. Thanks, the PharmaSynergy team, for having me. I just want to talk to you on the first presentation about a little bit about the market. Okay, there's no doubt 2020, if we have to choose a word, all of us, I think, will agree on COVID. It has been a transformational year in many ways. We have started early in the year with a completely changed and adaptation of smart working. For the BD community in particular, we have to stop traveling and visiting face-to-face and properly learn to negotiate deals through video conference, through the phone. So it has been and it's still been an incredible year in many sense. it has a very negative effect on many of the population. I think all of us, in one way or the other, have experienced the pain, and someone a relative passing away, or someone that we actually know directly or indirectly are having healthcare issues. So it's a really transformational and touchy year, as I said before. But how this is affecting us? I mean, and I'd like to thank Andrew Dean from Present Value for letting us use these slides that they've been putting together over the last weeks. Let me give you some figures about the COVID worldwide. So this is data updated to 13th of July. So we have over 13 million cases in the world, out of which 95,000 are new. But if you see in the last 17 hours, okay, the number of total cases have increased in just 10,000, okay? So we have 4.9 million active cases and close to 600,000 people who pass away. And in the last hours, we just have close to 2,000 deaths. So it's still not over. There's different phases of the COVID on different countries. And you can see now that emerging crisis right now is in Brazil, and probably Stephanie Saverio could help us on enlighten a little bit about the situation there. And you see many of the different countries that are quickly catching up, like Ecuador, Peru, India, or Mexico, and some of the countries with enormous population that this will have a huge impact, unfortunately, on these figures. If you look at the deaths by country, there's no secret to this, of course, with some exceptions that we can name. Germany, because they handle extremely well the COVID, and also because the population affected, as we will see later on, is slightly different, particularly in the older segment. The population, the countries which have higher populations are the countries who have more casualties, okay, and there's no secret to that. Unfortunately, as I said, Mexico, Russia are catching up quickly, and we will see the numbers increasing. If you do the numbers by million of people, you see that the figures are different. So Belgium has a big impact on number of casualties, followed by the UK and Italy and Sweden. And it's been particularly interesting because many of these countries have followed different public policies towards the COVID. What UK did is completely different what Sweden did. Okay, and Italy with a severe lockdown also different. And you can see independently of the strategy has been a significant impact on the different countries. Okay. What about the top 5 EU? If you look at the top 5 EU, and I'd like to thank IQVIA for also being so kind to let me use some of their slides, you can see that the male to female ratio has been pretty much the same all across the top 5 EU, with a little bit more women affected in Spain. But if you look at the age, again, similar situation occurs with around 40% of senior patients, with exception of Germany, in that in Germany we see that only 19% of patients above 70 years are the ones who've been less affected. And this also could help to understand a little bit why the number of casualties has been slightly lower in Germany. Okay. On the other hand, if we look at the overall figures, you see that this is not over. We are still having between 4,000 and 5,000 deaths per year, and the number of total daily cases are still on the rise, okay, reaching close to 200,000 new cases. So it's still a long way ahead. The shape of the curve is different. Some countries already have gone through it, and they're going through second and third wave of reinfections. It's smaller. And some of them are still fighting with the first wave, or they're about to enter. Okay. Good. What about the BD community? As Josh was mentioning before, okay, there's a significant. Let me see, because I see some message here. Okay. Okay. Do you see the slides properly? Okay. As you can see on the clinical, yes?
It doesn't appear that the slides are advancing.
Okay, let me see.
We're still on the title slide.
Okay, very good. Okay.
There it is, thank you.
Now it's working. Okay, good. Well, that's what I was mentioning before. Now you see the slide from the different impact on the different countries. You can see the male and female pretty much the same all across. Spain a little bit more, the older women have been affected, and in the age ratio, pretty much the same all across top 5 EU, with the exception of Germany, in which the patients over 70 years of age has been less impacted. 19% that you see in Germany versus, for example, 42% that you see in UK or in Italy. And as I was mentioning before, the total and daily deaths are still pretty much stabilized right now between 4,000 to 5,000 per day, but the overall number of cases globally are still on the rise. There's many countries that are still facing the first wave or in the middle of the first wave, and obviously this will bring the numbers up. Okay, let's see how the shape of the curve develops. What about the BD community? COVID has been a very active field, as you know. So since the pandemic struck, we could pretty much say that was around March this year, there has been over 2,500 clinical trials being registered, just specifically to COVID, with close to 1,000 drugs on the pipeline, out of which 70% are on between discovery and preclinical. As Josh was mentioning, BD activity has been on the rise, with close to over 200 strategic partnerships taking place in these few months, and almost 750 companies involved. 70 licensing deals, 38 financing deals, and just 9 M&A deals. And this has been in the last month. So it has been a very hectic period, as all of you know, for the BD community. What about the market? Okay, and the aim of my presentation is to provide you some figures of the market and how this has been impacted, particularly in top 5 EU. And then we will enter into how impacted some of the Vital Pharma products with a presence worldwide. Okay, so we will show you a little bit what we have seen to date, but this, of course, might be affected in the future by what happens with the dynamic market, that we will dedicate a particular slide to discuss about this. You can see that pretty much in all the cases, with the exception of UK, the first cases were at the beginning, late January. We started to see the first cases at the end. None of us really know what's going on. We heard of the news on China. We saw some videos, but there was a lot of uncertainty that this led to pretty much at the same time all across Europe to a severe lockdown. Okay, you have the data from top 5 EU, and you can see that Italy was the first country to go into a lockdown situation the 9th of March, Germany went the 23rd, Spain the 15th, France pretty much 17th, and UK went the 23rd. So pretty much all the same in 1 week, with 1 week, 2 week difference, all of us entered into a lockdown situation, being the most severe in terms of extreme of the duration, France and UK, that have been longer on the complete lockdown situation of the country. And then across different timelines, the different countries have started to issue some policies to actually release a little bit the pressure and reduce a little bit the lockdown with some healthcare measures. Of course, these have an impact in many industries, but also in the pharmaceutical one. And this is data coming from IQVIA. You can see the prescription market has been negative on a year-to-date basis in Italy, France, and Germany. We will get into the details a little bit later on. And Spain and UK pretty much fine. On the consumer health side, of course, there has been a significant increase. We have the exception of Germany, and this is also driven by the number of masks, the sanitizing gels, and the last that has been acquired by the population to face the different COVID measures. And we will get a little bit more detail on this. Okay, let's see what happened in Italy. That, as we have seen, is one of the countries that has been more severely affected, was the first one to get into the lockdown, and was one of the ones who have, given its nature with a lot of tourism, who have experienced early on the impact of COVID. What you can see here on the graph on the left-hand side is the difference between 2019 and 2020. You can see 2 peaks, that this is a common pattern that we will see in all the countries, probably with the exception of UK. The first peak is in March, is when the lockdown implemented. You have seen a huge surge of the sellout of the drugs pretty much all across the different therapeutic areas. There was a first reaction of increasing stock, everyone buying products at home, and particularly for the chronic patients. And you can see this is why there is only in March. Then you see another one around week 17, that this is more related to a calendarization topic in combination with the lockdown, because this is the difference between the Easter break between 2019 and 2020. So you can see a first peak in March, where all the therapeutic areas pretty much have been affected in one way or the other, and there's a pattern. Okay, the chronic type of treatments, or treatments like oncology, CNS, cardiovascular, and the like, has been pretty much with moderate to a small increase. You have to bear in mind that the surge has been significant in March. So on a year-to-date basis, we're still on the positive side, but the other more acute type of treatments, we can say, so you have like blood and blood-forming organs, or the hemotinics, the genitourinary systems, and dermatologicals with some exception, and musculoskeletal, as all the surgeries has been stopped to give room to the COVID patients, you see a decrease on a year-to-date. So this surge in March was not enough to compensate on the others. If you go to the consumer market, you can see, again, some patterns that will be repeated in some countries. So you can see, all in all, that the vitamins and minerals have been increasing. You see the case in Italy, close to 9% on year-to-date. The personal care, okay, the personal hygiene increasing significantly, 64%, and this is a result, as I said, of all the sanitizing gels that we need to buy, and the masks and the like. And nutrition pretty much stable, and the patient care with medical and surgical aids increasing significantly versus previous year. So you can see that outside what is the direct metrics of the COVID, the rest have been pretty much stable, with ups and downs. We again see this peaking in March, but it's not so clear like in the prescription drugs. Okay, let's see. Okay, what about Germany? Okay, Germany is slightly different in Italy. Okay, you can see dermatological in Italy was significantly going down, but now here we see that it's going up a significant amount. But again, we see the pattern pretty much a peak again at the mid of March, and then going down and renormalizing again, with the last week of May still going down. Musculoskeletal is still the worst performing system. Genitourinary is still going down. Blood forming organs flat. So with the exception, we can say, of the dermatologicals, okay, all the rest are pretty much behaving similar to Italy. Okay. On the consumer health category, again, we see the increase in vitamins and nutritional supplements. I mean, this is seen all over the different countries. And in this case, in line with the dermatologicals, the skin treatment significantly also went up. It's curious to see that the personal care and patient care, so the masks and the hygiene type of products, were not increasing as much as we saw, for example, in Italy, and nutritional is going significantly down. So you see the peak, but the peak did not manage to recover what we're seeing right now. Spain is 3/4 of the same. We're similar behavior to Italy, particularly in CNS, cardiovascular, and oncology, with a moderate growth, and we see the rest of the categories, of course, going down as well, with the latest week recovering a little, okay, and it started to become a little bit more flattish here. Exactly the same in consumer health. In this case, you see again, OTC drugs increasing 5%, skin treatment and pain reliefs, you find paracetamol here, a significant increase, personal care again going up, medical and surgical aids increasing by 66%, and nutrition again in the -10 that we saw before. So pretty similar behavior all across the different markets in Europe. In France, exactly the same pattern. Okay, you see a big increase on March and the same. So France, we can say that France, Italy, and Spain are pretty much behaving in similar ways with the same categories affected. Some difference on the percentage of decay on year to date, but pretty much a similar situation. And in the consumer health market, again, we see the same patterns with vitamins and minerals increasing 23% on a year to date basis, and also personal care and patient care going up, and nutrition in this case with an 8% increase. UK somehow the different, okay, is outlier in the top 5 EU. We don't accept such a big increase of sales in March. We were talking about 50 to 60% increase in the rest of the countries, and here we just see a small peak of 10% and a flattish behavior. Okay, the only difference has been in respiratory system. That if you remember from the previous slides, it was going down all across the top 5 EU, but in UK significantly up, going up to 9% above. Okay, in the personal care, you have to bear in mind here that we don't have, other countries have sell-out data, and this country is selling. You can see that the pattern again is, you see the peak in March with some increase, but it's different than the rest of Europe. So UK has been behaving in a slightly different way at the moment. And this is an important data to reflect. Also, the market is slightly different than in the rest of Europe. I particularly like this slide because this reflects one of the issues that we're going to see here. We saw in the previous ones that the chronic patients and the chronic treatments, or those therapeutic areas with chronic patients are more common, like CNS, like cardiovascular, and the like. The market on year to date was, let's say, pretty much flat or growing slightly. But those categories in which the dynamic market was critical, like those related to gynecology, for example, it was going down. As you can see on this slide, from Spain, you see that there has been an important decrease of white Willy diagnosis. So number of new patients are significantly lower. So all those markets were affected by the need of having new patients, and they are linked to the visits to the physicians are suffering, it seems they're going to suffer. Marketing is recovering slowly week by week, as you can see, but we are still very far away from the previous years. And this may also have significant in healthcare impact in the future. So patients are not going to the physician, are delaying the first diagnosis, and this might lead in some cases the patients already have a disease that is going to be a little bit too late when we manage to actually treat them. Okay. This is from the market standpoint. What happens with ITF Pharma products? How COVID has impacted us on different products? So we selected some of our products that have a truly global presence. This is the picture where you can see where ITF Pharma is selling. In green, you can see the sales that we can do directly. We have a geographic footprint in more than 30 countries directly through our own sales force. We have close to 2,000 reps worldwide. That they are right now at different stages of situation. In countries like Spain, we still have a lockdown. We cannot be on the market. In countries like Italy, this has been open. In Germany, we're already there. In Russia, we are in lockdown. In US, is slightly recovering, and you can see it's more remote in detailing. And in countries like Chile, for example, in Santiago, the people are locked down still, and there's some regions in Chile that are starting to open. So there's a different footprint of calling on rep work right now. But as you can see, we cover a significant part of the world, and we also have distributors in the rest. So we're covering right now the 5 continents. And this gives us a very good overview of how the different countries are reacting. Let me start with one of our flagship products. So this is Natalben. Is a product for the optimal development of the child. So we're covering from preconception to childhood here. These are prenatal vitamins that are marketed in 17 different countries with a very medical-oriented approach. We're selling over 3 million packs worldwide, very nice double-digit CAGR over the last years, and a significant market leadership position France, Italy, and Spain, for example, with market shares or approaching or going over 50%. Okay. As you can see here, and unfortunately there's an issue with the slide, what we have seen is that in Spain, Italy, and France, where the product is already market leader, we continue to gain market share. And product is growing. And in other countries, for example, like Chile, where the product is on the launching phase, we haven't seen not much of an impact. And in countries like Belgium, where we only hold 10% of the market, we still some stop on the evolution of the product. In general, what we see is that the products who are the leaders in a scenario in which no one is promoting are benefiting from this situation, despite the market is going down and are getting market shares. I would like to highlight the case of the Natalben lactation in Spain. This is one of the side effects of COVID. We see the people locked down. There has been a significant increase versus previous year on the use of this type of products. The families are in lockdown situation, they're staying at home, and we see all across the world that the lactation products are increasing. So this month, 2 months in lockdown allow mothers to increase the lactation period and lactation duration, and we see this reflected on the sales of the products. So we go from prenatal vitamins to a completely different game. This is Teglutik, this is an oral suspension of Riluzole, this is a drug for ALS. So we're talking of a completely different animal here. Teglutik is marketed in 11 countries so far, and soon will be marketed in China, Korea, Argentina, Peru, Colombia. So the product will be in close to 20 countries in the coming year. In 2019, we sold 67,000 packs with a growth of 42%. CAGR since 2016. You have to bear in mind that the product was initially launched in 2014, so it's still on the launching phase. We already have 50% of all the ALS treatments treated with Teglutik. Okay? As you can see here, product is growing all across. In these severe diseases, chronic treatments, we have hardly seen any impact on the COVID. You see the figures, for example, Italy, Spain, and France, with the ups and downs typical of this type of products on a monthly basis. But if you smooth everything, you see that there's a clear tendency for growing and a small and a smooth growth. So not severe impact. You see the March lockdown, where you see the huge increase all across the different therapeutic areas, was not the case on this one. It was pretty much similar to the previous month, a little bit more probably in Spain, but nothing unusual here. On the other side, I would like to highlight also the importance of the supply chain. You can see the figures for Belgium and Switzerland, in which has been a stock out of one of the competitors, Riluzole, and this has increased to a significant uptake of the product on the previous months. Okay, so then you see Belgium is the combination of these two factors, what is giving the peak in March, and when you have the outlier. So the increase is because a little bit of COVID, but significantly because of the stock out of the main brand on the market in that country. And you can see USA, for example, product recently launched, only 1.5 years on the market, and you can say that there's no clear growth trend, but there has been no change or no impact due to COVID. So we don't see this extra stock or extra sales of the product in much as we saw on the other products. Another of the classics of ITF Pharma, one of our most successful products, is Ferplex. This is iron protein succinylate, a highly differentiated iron that has advantage of its good GI profile. That you know, iron usually have problems of constipation and gastric problems, and with Ferplex we can avoid this because this is a biologic iron. Very successful product, marketed in 31 countries, close to 11 million packs, and still with a nice double-digit growth on the product. And here you have the situation. We again have Spain with a clear market leader position, and you see that the product is already mature, has been around for many years, and we are around these 300,000 boxes a month sales, and we saw the significant increase coming in March, and then going down a little to compensate these extra sales. But what we see, and we saw this on Natalben, mature markets where there's no promotion, products that are market leaders are gaining market share, and we have a positive evolution on this product. China, the product has 17% market share in value, has been significantly growing over the last years. You see a big impact in China due to COVID. As you can see always in January and February, the impact of the Chinese New Year, and you can see the shape of the curve this year is completely different. We are dealing now with the lockdown in cities like Beijing. There's limited promotion capabilities in China right now. There's a lot of e-detailing being done, and you can see that the growth of the overall market has been strongly slowed down in China at this stage. So there you can see a big impact. Countries like Morocco, in which the product has been growing and been launching for recently, and we're approaching these 1 million boxes, we see a similar case like in the case of Spain. Product has a very well-established brand, very good position, and are gaining market shares. And I also like to highlight another life cycle of the product, because if you see the situation of Poland, that we had the product marketed in the past by one company, and we recently switched to Berlin Chemie since May 2019, and you can see since they took over, they're doing an excellent job. The sales was increasing dramatically, but in Poland, you can see the anticipation of the effect of COVID. They have the impact a little bit later, and you can see that the sales in the last months, in April and May, has been a little bit lower, and now is recovering in June. So we saw this pattern pretty much all over the place. Huge sales in March, products that are market leaders gaining market share, even if the markets are going down. Okay, another product that we have interesting worldwide presence, and we can try to grab some patterns here, is Progeffik, is micronized progesterone, 100 and 200 mg. We have the product in 15 different countries, selling over 6 million packs, with a very nice 27% growth over the last years, and with a very nice market share in Europe. And here you see that in this market, that this is highly dependent on new prescriptions. You can see that since February, March, you can see clearly that the peak hasn't been so high, with the exception of Germany, and I will enter into this in a minute, and then it's going down. So we can see the number of fertility cycles are going down significantly all across. The reason for this outlier in Germany, we saw Germany was a little bit different in terms of the impact of COVID, was milder, and here is affected also by tenders and some limitations potentially on the stock of the supplier. So that's why you see this big peak in there. But all in all, what we can see is the progesterone, as it's linked to acute treatments, to fertility, to IVF cycles, is going down all over the world. And then the new kid in town on the portfolio, Cariban, is a product that we recently licensed for European rights. It's marketed already in 5 countries. We launched it in 5 countries in 2018. This is a product for nausea and vomiting in pregnant women. First year, we sold close to 600,000 packs, and we're having 90,000 monthly run rate at the beginning of the year. So this will lead us to over 1 million units by the end of the year, and it's a combination of doxylamine, pyridoxine for nausea and vomiting. And here we have the product at different stages. We have in Spain, product has been on the market for a significant amount of years, and you can see again stable evolution, increase due to in March, like everywhere else, and then we see a decrease and a stabilization. Again, product is market leader. We see in Italy that the product has been just launched in February 2018, with very good uptake, over 200,000 boxes on the first year. And you can see that the COVID in this sort of diseases, this is more inelastic, pregnant women, nausea and vomiting is very normal symptoms and it needs to be treated. And there's a safe alternative. You can see that the impact of COVID was not that significant. We don't see this overstocking in March. So we're in a similar situation, let's say, to Teglutik. In countries like Portugal, that the product has just been recently launched for us, you see, again, a flat evolution. And in Germany or in Belgium, where the product has been recently launched in this space, we don't see a big impact on this. Okay? And that's pretty much it from my side on the initial introduction of the market and also on the impact on Ital Pharma products on this.
Thank you very much, Alex. That was a nice overview of the impact of the market, and in particular to be able to see that there are variable impacts based on therapeutic area and based on individual drugs. So with that, I turn it over to our next speaker. Daniel, are you?
I'm here, yeah. I'm
great.
Try and share the screen now. So hopefully you can see the presentation and not the notes. Okay.
Yes, all good.
Thanks, Josh. And thank you for the introduction earlier. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all those present at PharmaSynergy today. For those that I haven't met before, my name is Dan West, and I'm Vice President Business Development at ADVANZ PHARMA. And I'm delighted to be here to talk to you today. Firstly, I'd like to thank the PharmaSynergy team for giving me this opportunity to speak to you all and to present on ADVANZ's strategy execution in the first half of this year. It's going to be an example of, I think, a global business adapting under these difficult conditions during lockdown that we're all now very familiar with. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, how did the year start? Well, like all good businesses, ADVANZ PHARMA, in 2020, we started with a plan. And our plan was to make progress towards a goal that we'd set in previous years and made good progress on in 2019. And that goal was to become the leading platform for niche established medicines with advanced commercial capabilities throughout Western Europe. So clearly this is a goal that is going to require a clearly defined strategy and a credible plan for execution. Like any strategy, it's going to pull in departments from all across the organization. But I think it's fair to say that this one in particular is going to heavily rely upon the activities of a corporate development department. And so what we'll try and cover off in the coming slides is some of the impacts and effects of this and strategy adjustments on both our broader business, but also the business development team. And I think, so again, thinking back, for a lot of companies, including ADVANZ PHARMA, the year started relatively normally. So let's see how we were getting on before the conditions changed. So I think we were making good progress. In quarter one, we had one deal done and one clear strategic target. So we completed an acquisition of a range of brands from UCB, and we're focused on the integration activities to onboard sales in 20 countries and a sales team. We'd acquired the rights through that to this range of brands that contained a complex technology in a niche presentation. So thinking back to that strategic goal, making progress towards it. But like any acquisition, the deal is part of the picture, but the integration is where you really confirm that it was a good deal. We were also busy, I think, in a variety of in-depth diligence activities for a second clear strategic target. This target asset being Corevia, which would give us the infrastructure to complete our Western European footprint and give us those advanced commercial capabilities that we were looking for. So ultimately, as we reached the end or towards the end of quarter one, we were very much in the process of trying to complete the deal. So moving on, the bit that I think no one needs me to explain, you'll all know it better than me for your individual locations and circumstances. And it happened at different times and in different ways depending upon where you live. But fundamentally, our ways of working changed as we knew it. We lost our ability to move freely. We lost our offices. We had uncertainty and concern amongst our colleagues and our friends and our families. And fundamentally, we lost that face-to-face contact with both colleagues and business partners. So at that point, what to do? Well, I think the critical thing was to react, and that's what we did at ADVANZ. I think we needed to assess what we did know, and we needed to plan for what we would come to know. And I think importantly as well, we needed to create the space and the structure that will allow our business to adapt throughout that time period. Who knows how long it would be and still will be. So clearly there were challenges and difficulties for both people and businesses alike. But what were the challenges and the immediate focuses for ADVANZ at that time? So, firstly and foremostly, our people. We wanted to prioritize our team and our employees. So it meant understanding the needs and issues by location and trying where possible to support in any health concerns that they may have at that point. And also to try and consider any longer term health concerns that may materialize to try and forecast how any shift in strategy or day-to-day working could affect them. Second of all, once we'd understood that, we needed to think about ensuring that our people could continue to work, to keep doing the important jobs that they do, answering questions like where and how will we work. And I think importantly as well, and this is a critical part of any execution, how will we all work together? How will we communicate? How will we all move in the right synchronization? And a final immediate priority or challenge to address was our activity, our outputs. First and foremost at ADVANZ, Pharma, we're about making medicines available, ensuring supply of essential medicines, as I'm sure many of you are. And so we needed to make sure that that was a priority for our organization, our employees, our patients, and then ultimately moving on to our strategy. And in the execution of that strategy, and with a forward view and maybe a BD lens here, we needed to address the potential challenges that could appear as we try and move forward our projects, not least just how we work together, but also diligence activities. As Josh mentioned earlier, clinical trial impacts. I'm sure we've all been impacted by that. And any impact to ongoing integration activities or deal closure. But I think really for business development professionals, corporate development professionals, whatever we call ourselves, I think our strategy didn't change. And I think that's one of the fundamental messages of this presentation. What we did was changed our activities and our tactics for execution, but we remained guided by the same objectives because they fundamentally didn't need to change through this, for ADVANZ PHARMA at least. So what are some of the things that we did to ensure that we address those needs for our people, our productivity, and our activity? So how did we stay on track? Well, as I've mentioned before, our first focus would always be our people. So as you can see here, what we did was we put time into creating space for interaction, well-being, and fun. So I think, and maybe many companies followed this example, but we ensured that at a departmental level that we tried to recreate those physical interactions, maybe around the water cooler or the coffee pot. We had regular company town halls to communicate information, and for those not familiar, Yam Jam sessions, which is an opportunity for a Q&A after the town hall, so that everyone can check their understanding. But aside from kind of work activities, we also put time and effort into making sure that our employees had access to sort of expert-led virtual mindfulness sessions and well-being sessions. We were moving to a new way of working where our home and the lines between our home and our office could have blurred. And we needed to ensure that people remained healthy and positive and safe in those environments. We put a big focus on corporate social responsibility, and we ensured that we continued as normal with that. We held a 24-hour dance-a-thon to raise money for charity, and we encouraged and held activities like virtual quiz nights, virtual bingo evenings, to retain, I think, a sense of community that we had in ADVANZ. We also embraced technology very quickly. We were a global organization, and our offices are spread around the world, and I think our offices and our personal computers are very well equipped with the right technology. But I think it's probably fair to say, and maybe this is the case in other organizations as well, that our behaviors weren't. You know, I think that we had Skype for Business and then moving on to Teams. And I think for the most part, these platforms were used almost as an SMS service. We still continue to use our desk phones or our mobile phones for communication. And so we needed to give the appropriate training to upskill our teams and the support to make sure that they felt comfortable using these new technologies. But we also needed to ensure that our employees had a comfortable home working setup. So we gave funding and support to obtain, to basically recreate the office desk at home and ensure that all of our employees could work well, not just the senior teams, but all of our employees could work well wherever they may be. And I think when we look at the business aspect of the changes that we made, we needed to update our practices to align with this new virtual world. And we needed to repurpose our business into virtual methods. So to give some examples of this as we go through business development processes, we could have greater use, where appropriate and through risk assessment, of desktop audits for our quality due diligence. I think we absolutely pivoted very quickly to the use of video conference over phone in all of our internal interactions. And I think we embraced wholesale virtual meeting platforms, and in addition to that, learned how to share and develop information in this new way. I think back to examples of working alongside my legal colleagues and opposite a partner company's business development and legal teams as we learned how to share contracts and edit them live as we negotiated. We spent many an hour doing that, and with ultimately leading to successful discussions. And I think importantly, we worked almost collaboratively rather than two teams negotiating against each other. It was a great exercise. We also needed to ensure that our teams felt comfortable and confident in this new workspace. I think it's, you know, that the office was creeping into the home. And so we embraced pets. A lot of my colleagues and some of my contacts work with their dog or their cat by their side. We embraced interruptions from children who had homeschooling questions. And we pivoted to a new way of working, which I think was kind of a natural cultural adjustment for ADVANZ. Because as an organization, we always have prided ourselves on trying to combine, I think, professionalism, but with great connectivity and a little bit of fun. And finally, as you can see, unlike many organizations, I'm told, and through the guidance and support of our HR team, we adjusted our methods and committed fully to our recruitment plans. We didn't pause anything. We'd understood that in the execution of our strategy, only so much of it could be bought. Some of it had to be, sorry, excuse me. Some of it had to be developed and grown internally. So all of this time and effort invested in adapting our techniques and practices and committing to this new normal allowed us to make good progress in many areas. So what did that allow us to do? So okay. So what did we complete? Well, I think first and foremost, and most importantly, we managed to maintain the supply of our essential medicines, some of which were experienced increased demand, which was proving difficult to forecast. We managed to complete remote and virtual integrations of both products, sales, and most importantly, our new colleagues in Romania. We were extremely busy with recruitment, holding scores of interviews and ultimately agreeing offers for key roles with talented and experienced candidates. And I think importantly as well, both sides feeling very confident that they'd made the right decision despite having never met. And as a BD leader, when I was asked at the start of lockdown by my colleagues, how will this new normal affect our activity and ultimately our productivity? My prediction at the time, perhaps somewhat optimistically, was that it will increase both of these things. And I'm delighted to say that my team proved me right. You know, and we've had an incredibly productive Q2 under lockdown, I think greater than our Q1 activity. So looking at this on a timeline, I mean, I think what I wanted to show next is like a visual representation of how much we've been able to deliver throughout this new period, this new normal, through a combination of good planning and adaptation, the strong team and the culture that we've embraced, how much we've been able to execute. So we started the year in January with a strategic objectives offsite, where we refined the approach to the year. We completed a deal. We managed to onboard some senior managers in our portfolio department. We completed the Alprostadil deal. And then, of course, COVID happened. And, you know, the uncertainty kicked in, but how much could we achieve after that with our strategy execution and our pivoted position? So as we look forward here, you can see that we kept going with critical business development and M&A activities, completed integration activities, recruiting, onboarding, communicating to our new colleagues, through regular town halls to introduce and explain our business. I think in business development, our networking and meeting activity and conferencing was increased further than ever before. We've brought on industry-leading chief medical officer to our executive team, who's recently joined us from the chief medical officer role at Sandoz. And ultimately, we closed and completed deals and completed recruitment, investing in resource to grow our business development team during this difficult time. So as you can see, our activity in the 3 months post-lockdown is much greater than our activity in the 3 months before it. And I think the key message here is that having the right strategy and an adaptable execution is the approach. So as a result of a lot of that internally led change to go with the externally driven change, we were managing. So what does the new normal look like for ADVANZ PHARMA? Well, we started off, and it's probably a little difficult to see here, with our infrastructure on the left-hand side there, and we added in the Correvio infrastructure. And this has created what is a fundamentally changed organization for ADVANZ PHARMA. We're now an organization with sales in approximately 100 countries. We have a direct sales presence in around 15, focused primarily on Western EU markets. And through that period of uncertainty, through our successful execution, we've managed to transform our organization by increasing our workforce. We've added in highly skilled sales forces for complex projects to support the delivery of them and commercialization of them in the EU. We've enhanced our medical and market access functions. And in addition to our 200 strong product portfolio, we now bring to our business a deep therapeutic understanding in the areas of anti-infective and cardiology. So these difficult times through lockdown have not been out without their challenges, but they have been truly transformational for ADVANZ PHARMA. So what does the future hold? So, to try and coin a new phrase here, the new normal, if you'll permit me. Well, I think we intend to learn and evolve from this unique period. We'll continue to assess, plan, and adapt. And I think what we'll do is we'll try and take the best of our pre-COVID practices and combine them with the best that we've learned to do during COVID. I think it's fair to say as business developers, we'll remain fully committed to virtual meetings and platforms like PharmaSynergy. But when the time is right, we look forward to those important face-to-face interactions again, perhaps with a mask. And we're confident that this is going to lead to new deals, which we'll now impart for ADVANZ PHARMA as we adjust our execution again, have a therapeutic focus. And we're going to look to empower our employees. We're going to offer choice for them. And our employees have proven their abilities under the most difficult of circumstances. And we're going to embrace technology to give them that empowerment and to drive productivity across our organization. from the ground up. But I think it's important to say that we're also going to keep a watching brief on how this evolving landscape is going to affect our teams and our people, ensuring that we keep the healthy boundaries between work and personal lives. But I think ultimately, we believe at ADVANZ PHARMA that the future holds great opportunities. And I think we've proven that we can capture them for both our business and our people. And we look forward to exploring more of them with you at this conference and others. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'm sure you have your own stories of success through adversity. Here are my contact details if you'd like to discuss any further. Thank you again.
Thank you, Daniel. So our final speaker is Severino, and if you're all set, I'll pass it off to you to close the discussion, and then hopefully we'll have a few minutes left for some questions that are making their way through the Q&A module. Okay.
Okay, can you see my screen, Josh?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. So, hi everyone. It's a great pleasure to present in this virtual edition of PharmaSynergy. Thank you for the organizers for the invitation. As Josh has already mentioned in the introductions, my name is Saverio. I'm Head of Innovation and Business Development for Ashe Laboratories. And I've gathered a lot of, let's say, updated and impactful information for us to evaluate all the impacts that we have been experiencing since this pandemic started, as well as some information to prepare ourselves for the challenge and opportunities that we may face with all of that. So we are seeing unpredicted global transformation. Everyone is seeing all the healthy risks and the adaptations that we are being obliged to take. The shifts in behaviors, new attitudes, learnings, the speed for new technologies, adoptions, research and development, everything that is doing significant change and broken paradigms. Obviously, it will represent a new demanding for those activities. Probably there is no going back for the previous pace. We learned that there will be improvements on that. And all the disruptions that we've been seeing, and I will touch about this in the next slides. So does it sound familiar? It's the VUCA environment. So what we are seeing is rapid change, surprise all the time, many forces, contradictions, bouncing back and forth all the time. So it's definitely a time for leadership to arise, and everyone can make a difference in this environment, taking decisively bold decisions, making a difference. And what are the main concerns in an environment like this with a high level of unpredictability and all the challenge that we need to face? Let's see. In this survey that were executed by Global Data, they interviewed 136 executives from pharma industry from all over the world. And these results, we can clearly see that we have been experiencing, first of all the concerns in regards to the employee safety. So probably most of you have started with crisis committees, with all the meetings in order to preserve the health of the employees. Most of the employees turn to home office working. And then once we stabilized all the situation, we start to see the impacts on supply chains and clinical trials and all the other disruptions that we faced. But it's interesting that some of the companies that moved faster to some interesting, let's say, decisions that could enable change and improvements were the ones that differentiated in the market. I will touch some examples of how some companies can, let's say, use all the situation in a positive way and be and take advantage of that. The companies can switch from defense to offense strategies. So all the companies need to mitigate the risks. It's obvious. Need to preserve health and safety, operational, financials. But once you have that stabilized, the companies need to look at the future. And for example, here we can see in the case of Sanofi that they increased the investments in innovation in the early 2000s from 950 million euros to more than 1.3 billion euros. And it put Sanofi in a better position to outperform the peers and put them in an advantage to acquire ADVANZ PHARMA, which was a much larger German pharmaceutical company at that time. So the investments on innovation, even in the middle of the crisis, paid off. So it's something for us to have in mind. The outbreak of SARS also was critical for Alibaba on its path to becoming 470 billion e-commerce giant. So once you can use all the situation in your benefit, I mean, with important decisions to improve the operations, you can definitely take advantage of that. Another example is a cosmetic company, Lin Qingshuan, that was forced to close the stores due to COVID-19, but transformed its 100 plus beauty advisors of the stores in digital influencers. And those digital influencers were able to leverage the online sales of the company, and they achieved more than 200% growth compared to the previous year. So fast and decisive movers have a better chance to win. So it's something for the company to take a decision on it. And most of the organizations, the post-pandemic organizations, will take shape along especially three dimensions: who we are, how we operate, and how we grow. It's clear that it will affect our years ahead. So first, who we are. There is a clear and emerging reevaluation of purpose, value, and culture of the companies. A corporate identity and connection with the culture is needed for productive and enduring engagement of the employees with the company. So we can touch that soon, but it's clear that now people is reevaluating all of that. And how the companies are operating or intend to operate in the future. It's more than clear that the companies will need to build coalitions, learn faster, and develop common platforms to survive and grow in this new normal. The companies will need to work in the ecosystem, work with tech companies, with some of their providers, diagnostic companies, to building those coalitions in order to survive and grow. And talking about growth, how we can grow. Here it's the main variable continues to be people. The company needs to understand how they can maintain their talents, seeking for non-hierarchical structures to turbocharge decision making, and talents are the ones that will be able to capitalize the opportunities that will arise through their passion, skills, capabilities, judgment, and creativity. So the companies need to look at those talents in order to engage them in this new normal. And talking about talents, what we have been seeing now is that all the workforce is now experiencing this new normal. It's true that we are still learning how to work remotely. There are a lot of people working too much and consequently increasing stress and so. But the vast majority is learning how to be more productive. As Daniel mentioned, Alejandro mentioned, we have been able to maintain the pace and even be more productive in terms of achievements and developments of our business. So most of the employees are now happier than before. And many talents will demand the flexibility that this remote work can provide. So it's clear a situation where the companies will need to adapt themselves to embrace this new environment. The companies can also take advantage to access new pools of talents through this, because there is no need to reallocate, and then you can access those talents whatever they are. So it's an interesting timing once we learn all of that. And what are the key challenges that we see ahead of us? Obviously, the economic crisis and the unemployment, and obviously the consequences of that will impact the market. The pharmaceutical market is one of the most resilient ones, but the unemployment, especially where the countries that needs that are out of pocket market or depends on health insurance, will be affected by this unemployment. The social distance and travel restrictions will affect the business in general. But I think that what is happening now, and I think that will continue to happen in the future, is that the people will use better the meetings. The meetings will be more productive through virtual settings using digital tools. I think that most of you is seeing that the interruptions in the middle of the meeting are only if the speaker has something interesting to add. It's different from when we are in a regular environment. So I think that the meetings are being more productive, the committees are being more productive, and I believe that even in negotiations, M&As, we will use the possibilities to work remotely and through digital tools, exchanging documents. It will maintain the pace and even improve. But obviously, we will need some face-to-face meetings, presential occasions, and one thing that I think that will happen is that we will use better this time. We will have a better value of those face-to-face interactions in the future. Protectionism and strict policies needs to be addressed through coalitions, as I mentioned, and collaborations, as well as all the disruptions in supply chain and other activities. And in this case, the usage of technologies will play a decisively role to enable the companies to solve all those issues. And one topic which is really interesting is the patient centricity environment that I think that most of the companies will see in their markets, where the patients will be empowered by information. They will be more demanding, so the companies will have to reach them with the services wherever they are. The companies will have to provide to them a better or a complete approach in terms of therapeutic suggestions, not only the chemical matter, but also combine it with diagnostic companies, tech solutions, service providers. So probably in the future, we will see an empowerment of the patients, and the companies will need to be prepared to work on this new environment. And lastly, the opportunities. Along the presentation, I picked some of the examples of how technology is affecting us. We are using the technologies. This is a virtual edition of PharmaSynergy. PharmaSynergy is a clear example of that. So we are using better the technologies. Probably most of you can remember that a year ago was complicated to have a video conference from Asia to America, integrating other countries, but now it's easier to use. So the technology has improved, and we need to continue to use that. We need to embrace digital and analytics. It will be crucial to keep the pace and to develop new solutions. Artificial intelligence for drug research and development. It has been putting a new pace in terms of speed for research and development, and it will remain as an opportunity. Working remotely, I have already mentioned about that. Real world evidence, we have been seeing how fast we can be to deliver results in terms of clinical research. So the researchers will be demanded to provide the same level of speed in the future. So it's really an opportunity to use real world data. And the new normal will require new solutions being delivered in a new speed. And as I mentioned, the collaborative environment is something that we really need to consider as a mandatory condition for the future. The companies will have to work in a collaborative way in order to deliver all the requirements for the empowered level of patients and the market. So very briefly, so those were the key messages that I prepared to share with you. Hope you enjoyed. And now we can move to some time for the questions, and then we can address potential questions that we have received.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the speakers. I think we have time just for a couple of quick questions. The first is building off of what you just were talking about, particularly the new normal. And one of the questions that came in is one that I think is really relevant. You know, we've been spending so much time, particularly in the pharmaceutical industry, thinking about globalization and crossing borders. And one of the things that the pandemic has done is it has actually really sort of created more borders and more sensitivity around borders. And the question is, how do we see this affecting alliances and collaborations? Do we see the future holding more regional alliances and cross-regional collaborations, or fewer of those? And I'll ask you to start, as you were just sort of touching on some of these points.
Yes, Josh, thank you. I just mentioned something about that in regards to how we can work in terms of using the technology. I think that will be productive to exchange all the information and move with the main, let's say, needs in a negotiation, in a collaboration, but we will need the face-to-face interactions. I don't think that will be regionalized. I think that will continue to be global and keep the pace. But the key difference is, I think that we will use better the presential opportunities. We will use better the interactions, and all the rest we can do through digital. But I think that we'll keep and even improve the number of possibilities with this new normal.
Thank you. Do any of the other speakers have any points of view on the regionalization of collaborations?
I mean, yeah, I can add a couple of my own comments there, Josh, thanks. I mean, I think fundamentally the lockdown, COVID-19 will change the way that we work, our personal lives and business in some way for all of us, I think. For an organization like ADVANZ, the changes that we've made over the last 6 months, I think certainly we will see more regional alliances in terms of our deal making. We went ahead with a Western European strategy to be able to, I think, bring the maximum value from the EU with the minimum complexity. But as we're trying to bring in complex projects, I think it makes a lot of sense for us to look to partner with companies that perhaps have a US footprint or a Chinese footprint, for example. I think outside of ADVANZ PHARMA, more broadly in industry, I think it very much depends on the organization. For some organizations, strategy and deal making will continue as is. I think with increased uncertainty, there's at least perceived increased risk. And I think one way to mitigate that in any of these deals that we do would be through collaboration. So I think I can see a potential for it to increase, depending on the organization.
In our case, we see an acceleration, in fact. So people are aware that it's going to be a big crisis, economical crisis coming up, and the companies are willing to launch new products and to reinforce their portfolio. So we see that the activity actually has accelerated in Asia, in Southeast Asia in particular, and in Latin America. In those countries in which we are looking for B2B opportunities, the number of demand of our products have significantly surged. I think the only point probably is that people are a little bit more concerned about the supply chains, and they ask you if you are vertically integrated, where you get the API from, and people get into more details into the supply chain. But for the rest, I would say it's positive. This globalization is ongoing and it's non-stop.
Yeah, great, thank you. So the last question that we have time for is one around the customer interactions. And each of you touched upon how we envision the interactions changing as a result of COVID, in particular internally, and how we will interact with our partners and our colleagues. But one of the topics that we did not touch on is how we're thinking about interactions with our customers, in particular the sales representative to the physician or selling into the hospital. And have any of you begun to address that and thinking about how those very integral sales rep to customer interactions will change as a result of COVID?
I think I can start, Josh. Ashay is a company pretty much focused on medical detailing. We have over 2,600 sales reps visiting many doctors, most of the doctors in the country. And obviously it was impacted by this situation. We have been using some tools to establish virtual contact with the physicians, even prior to the pandemic. But obviously, once we started with the pandemic, it accelerated a lot. But I think that the companies will notice that the content needs to change. The physicians will demand the content will need to be improved in order to justify the timing the physician is dedicating for that specific visit, contact. So it's important to change the way that we engage with the physicians. And I think that we will use different tools, not only the face-to-face visits, but also improving a lot through digital tools. And the physicians will ask for on-demanding alternatives to interact with the pharmaceutical companies.
Any other thoughts from Daniel or Alex?
But what we can see, because we also have close to 2,000 reps on different countries, what we can see is that at least in Southern Europe, digital, I mean, it has been an increase of the digital, but the overall impact is not so great, I would say. We have resumed calls and visits in Italy in particular, And what you see is that with some exceptions, things are going a little bit back to normal. The only thing is that there are hardly no patients on the clinics. Okay, so this obviously is slowing down all the activity. So the frequency of calls that we're getting, we're at 70–80% what we used to have before. So there's no significant impact. I have doubts on the digital transformation because the engagement of the physicians will be difficult, and all of us are doing multitasking, and at the same time that you're taking care of a presentation, you're checking your emails. So it's difficult to get the engagement. So I'm still on a skeptic position of wait and see to see what happens. Of course, all of us will try multi-channel to see what happens, but I don't think, at least at the moment, that will change significantly the mix. But in 6 months down the road, we will all find out.
Yeah, great. And Daniel, I'll give you the final word here on that point, and then we'll wrap up.
Thank you, very kind, Josh. Well, I think my final word would be to agree with Alejandro and Stefani. I mean, I think the future is uncertain. What is clear, though, is that as we've had to evolve over the last 4 or 5 months, and as we continue to evolve our business execution strategies, there are opportunities, and we'll take, I think, what works well. And in some cases, maybe a virtual interaction with healthcare professionals at times, and with content that's more tailored to them. I think companies have an opportunity to try and make that work for them, and perhaps to gain an advantage there. But for sure, there'll be elements of what we've taken and what we've undertaken over the last few months that won't be part of the new normal, if we use that phrase.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you. And thank you to all the speakers for very enlightening presentations. This is a challenging time, and I'm sure everyone appreciates getting some different perspectives from all the experts. So we're already over time. I appreciate everyone's attention, and thank you for joining, and hope you enjoy the rest of the seminar. Thanks very much. We can conclude now.
Thank you.
Thank you.